Everybody clap. Thank you. All right, everybody, welcome to the ZACC Social Distance Comedy Show. You might be wondering, is this person dressed like a lobster for Halloween? My answer to that is hello and welcome to the show. My name is Zet Ezra Ansley, and you may be wondering, you may be thinking that they've changed their name, and that's correct. I changed my name more times than Donald Trump lies about being alive, because I'm 100% certain he is dead. He was green in the last debate, so he is a corpse. I was watching a show on Netflix called Haunted, and that is just a show where they reenact people's ghost stories. And I was watching one where this lady was talking about a ghost she has in her house, the normal things of bumps in the night and seeing things. And then she said, one night Jared stayed over, and then it just cuts to a sex scene. I don't know why that was necessary for a ghost story. And then it just cuts to them sleeping. So there really was no point to the sex scene. Jared ends up getting up because he hears voices, and he goes to a closet where he gets locked in, and then keeps hearing voices, and then they just let him out. And that was the whole story. Which makes me, one of two things happened there. Either the lady didn't have a ghost story and just wanted to brag about the sex she was having, or the director stopped listening after a certain point. It was just like, oh, okay, yes, Jared came over. What happened next? A ghost dressed as a pizza boy came in. Oh, you don't have any money? I don't have any pockets. Ooh. His ghost pizza. Sorry, okay. It is October. There are a lot of scary things happening, like a possible second civil war. We might re-elect a dictator. There are other scary things like gender dysphoria. Nobody else? That's just me? All right. I am tired of the YouTube ads for the political stuff, not the gender dysphoria. Although I would love to see an attack ad for gender dysphoria. Is your Adam's apple too pronounced? Sucks for you. Suck it up, bitch. Have you seen the attack ads that are just like small words and then it just ends? So there's literally one that shows Kathleen Williams, guns bad. Greg Gianforte, guns good. Portland, and then it just ends. My roommate's favorite, which he really wanted me to say, was the one where it just said, Steve Bullock's assistant was charged with sexual harassment. Think about that, and then it just ends. So all conservatives need are little words in their ads, which I think would be a perfect strategy for getting them aware and on the side of like preventing COVID. Just COVID-19, guns bad. COVID-19, liberals, and then it just ends. And it was like, oh shit, and they'd wear a mask. Joe Biden, that's the whole thing. It's just him not wearing a mask, and then they wear a mask. This is going great so far. Thank you. I was, to change the subject entirely, I was on a road trip recently. I know you're supposed to stay home, but we really wanted weed. So we drove to Spokane, and on the way there we saw a lot of road signs that just didn't make sense. There was one that said, oh, well, I guess it makes sense, but it said click it or ticket, which makes me wonder, the guy who wrote that, did he come up with any other ideas before he settled on click it or ticket? Like clack it or smack it? Buckle up or fuck you? That's my one swear. I really don't know why that's become a running joke. Nobody actually said we can do one swear, but don't swear a lot. There might be children watching. Probably not. They're all in bed. Because kids go to bed at 7:30, right? I did. No, I didn't. So I have changed my name 3 times now. I've also come out as pansexual, non-binary, asexual, and I'm just afraid that I'm running out of cool things to come out as. I'm lactose intolerant. Is that anything? Thank you. Thank you. Getting support for the not being able to drink milk. But I've been, it's a lot like coming out as gay, I think, being lactose intolerant. I have been lactose intolerant my whole life. I was born that way. I knew I was lactose intolerant before I knew what lactose intolerant meant. There was a time when I tried to ignore my lactose intolerance and just drank a lot of milk, and it made me want to die. That's dark. I am lactose intolerant, but I still eat cheese because I have not found anyone willing and able to rearrange my guts. So, dirty sex joke. That's me. All the proceeds from tonight's show go to the Montana Racial Equity Network. So if you could go, give it up for that. The Venmo for that is either on the ZACC's Facebook page or the ZACC website, or you could go to givebutter.com/U, is that an O or a 0? I'll say O, 1 MFF. If O doesn't work, try a 0. Even $5 would be wonderful. You can't get the money back. And this show is sponsored by Romer's Point S Tire and Auto Service. We'd like to thank them for their support of this event. They changed Michaela's tires for $20. I've never been there, but I will now. They did a repair for ADD. I have a train of thought, but there's dynamite on the tracks, okay? Our next comedian will be at the Stave and Hoop, November 10th, and they have a issue coming out this winter called The Bloom Squad in Oneshi Press Anthology number 10. Please give it up for James Johnson.
All right. Thank you, Zed. Thank you to the ZACC for hosting us in this wonderful venue. Thank you to everyone at home for tuning in. My name is James Johnson. I've been doing stand-up comedy for about 4 years now. And I'm so happy to be able to be back on stage again. So happy to see all my comedian friends. I've missed you all. One thing that we really used to like to do was go to the Union Club every week. And we would sit around this big round table, and we called it Posse Night. And I got to wondering, what is this table used for the other nights of the week? So I went in the next night, and it was ninjas. I didn't see anybody there, and I was like, whoa, these guys are good. I went in the next night, and it was clowns. I was surprised. I said, I've never seen this many clowns in the bar before. One of them stood up and said, we're not clowns, we're juggalos. I said, calm down, Tim Miller. I didn't recognize you with all that makeup on. He said, it's not makeup, it's a lifestyle. I went to the next night, and it was pirates. Real pirates. And I was surprised to see that they weren't drinking rum. They were drinking PBR. Have I mentioned I've been doing stand-up for 4 years now? I don't think I'm getting any better at it. Have you seen our new official Montana state license plate? It's yellow. It's got the snake. It says, "Don't tread on me." I think our next step is going to be to change our state motto from the big sky country to the south of the north. And before you get excited, I can say that. I'm from here. I grew up in Montana. I was raised in Lincoln. One time I was doing a show in Great Falls, and people applauded when I said I was from Lincoln. And I said, "Oh, you're just clapping because you've got a cabin there. I didn't get to leave." But yeah, when did all of the buffalo get together and decide that they now identify as bison? Because like I said, I've lived through all my life, I've always just called them buffalo. There's a couple other things that people say that let you know they're not from Montana. It's not Thomas Meagher, it's Thomas Marr. It's not a coyote, it's a coyote. It's not a creek, it's a crick. And if anybody uses the word Montucky, you know that dude's from Colorado or Oregon. Montana, it's a beautiful state. It's a beautiful state, but the eastern part is so flat. It's so flat over there, the kids don't even play hide and seek. They just play pointing. Speaking of flat earth, this is true. There is a television production company that wants to make a reality show where flat earthers, the people who think that the earth is flat, go out in search of the edge of the world. Or as Betsy DeVos calls it, AP geography. But there's a lot of new technology that I don't trust. I don't trust self-driving cars. There is no way that I'm ever going to take my hands off the wheel in traffic unless I'm trying to put hot sauce on a taco. I saw a pharmaceutical ad the other day. It said, "Tell your doctor if you've been somewhere where infections are common." And I thought, isn't that the hospital? But it's almost Halloween. Halloween is next week. Happy Halloween, everyone. Yep. That means there's lots of pumpkins in the grocery stores now. And I just found this out. This is interesting. I found out that pumpkins can be used for food. It's true. It's called pumpkin whiskey stew. It turns out you can use real pumpkin to make pumpkin pie. I always thought that that was just an expression. But what part of the pumpkin do you actually eat? Because all I know about pumpkins is you cut off the top, and inside is that stinky, stringy stuff, and the seeds. And I know you can eat the seeds. You rinse them off, put them on a cookie sheet in a hot oven until they start to smoke and burn because you forgot about them because of the whiskey. And then you go down to the gas station and you buy a bag for $1.99. But I've been doing a lot of deep thinking lately. It's like I've had a lot on my mind. And I think I figured out how prayer was invented. Because I was like one night just standing in my kitchen, just kind of like thinking about my problems. And I started speaking out loud. And the sound of my own voice startled me. And I kind of like flashed it. I imagine this scenario like thousands of years ago at the beginning of civilization. Where one guy is just out there just like kind of, just talking to himself about his problems. And someone else comes up and says, "Hey, who are you talking to?" And the first one doesn't want to look stupid, so they say, "I was praying to God." Like, God? I don't see anybody else here. "Oh, no, you can't see God, but they're everywhere." "What do you mean they?" "Well, no one really knows what God is. Is God male or female or both or neither? Is there one or many or three? It all just kind of depends where you are in the world, what your God is." Where are we, by the way? I don't know, the Middle East? Yeah, that sounds about right. But this new praying thing, it works out great. I figured because you know how we tend our crops every day? Well, what I do is I tend my crops for 6 days, and then I take 1 day off to pray. And this is going to be perfect as soon as somebody invents football. But it is football season. I love football. I love watching football. I love everything about football except for Super Bowl commercials. A lot of people like the Super Bowl commercials. I don't. I like to focus on the game. Because wouldn't it be great if your favorite team won the Super Bowl? You'd be so happy. You could get one of those championship t-shirts they give the players to wear. You can tell the fans of the other team to suck it easy. But most importantly, you will have had a reason to sit through all of those commercials. When someone says, I only watch the Super Bowl for the commercials, what they really mean is, I am going to get so shit-faced on Sunday. But the best football players at the end of their career go to the Hall of Fame. And every player in the Hall of Fame has their own bust of their head, a bronze bust. And I imagine that in 1,000 years, some archaeologists are going to excavate the Hall of Fame. They'll think these were our gods. They'll think that we worship them. They'll say, 1,000 years ago, in pre-Trump America, people would set aside the fourth Thursday of November to celebrate the feast of Barry Sanders. And then came the nuclear war, which is true. That's a real possibility. We are living in dangerous times. Now is the time to start making the tough decision, asking yourself, what would I do? How far would I go to survive? For example, would you turn to cannibalism? Would you? I would. I wouldn't do it right away. I'd wait at least 4 or 5 hours because I don't want to wait until I'm weak from hunger to make that first kill. I want to get it over with and get desensitized so the screaming, it doesn't bother me anymore. And even if you're not very hungry, you can eat just a little bit and throw the rest away. There's millions of these things running around. They can't be that hard to catch. I said that to somebody, and they were like, aren't you worried about eating Americans? They're so fat. You might get high cholesterol. I said, I'm here for a good time, not for a long time. I was arguing with somebody online the other day. That's not a smart thing to do, but I was doing it. And they accused me of playing pathetic liberal games. I was thinking, pathetic liberal games. What would that be like? Would that be like Communopoly? Yes, We Candyland? Barack Paper Scissors? Bidens and Dragons? Trivial Pantsuit? Pokemonica Lewinsky? Safe Space Invaders? Sesame Street Fighter 2? Bad Hombre Hippos? Wait, don't deport me? Or Cards Against Sean Hannity? Thank you very much. My name is James Johnson. That's my time. And I want you to welcome to the stage our next comedian. She's one of the hardest working comedians that I know. She puts on a women's and non-binary comedy workshop. She's hosted countless comedy shows and open mics. I know I wouldn't be the comedian I am without all the opportunities I've had with the shows she's done. So put your hands together for the adult version of Wednesday Addams, Sarah Aswell.
Hello. That's how you want to be described as a comedian. Hardworking. She works really hard. You can really see her laboring out there. How's everybody tonight? So glad to be here. Before I get started, I just want to make a serious announcement. Please vote. Please vote. Yay, go vote. Who's voted already? Yes. Good. If you don't know how important it is to vote, please note that at this time last year, I was not doing comedy shows to no one and to a bleached mic. And you couldn't just walk around and say the virus and everyone knew what you were talking about. Yeah. Last year when you said the virus, you would have to guess from the other person's personality, like what virus they were talking about. Like, oh, herpes? This year we know the virus. Virus is happening. I was talking to a friend earlier today about this show. She was really concerned I was doing it to no one. She was like, isn't it going to be weird? Just like with no one in the room and just no one laughing at your jokes. I was like, yeah. It's going to be really weird. I've never, as a small-time comedian, ever performed to an empty room and had no one laugh at any of my jokes. Never happened. No, I have some experience. Like, I've performed at Monk's, just like everybody else. Yeah, I've performed at Monk's where the single living human being was the sound guy. And he wasn't even listening to my jokes. He was just listening to the sound of my jokes. So that was bad. For our listeners in Finland, Monks is a venue in town that you go and perform in an empty room to no one. It's either like a money laundering thing or they like hurting people's self-esteem. I don't really know. I'm telling jokes to comedians, so these are comedian jokes. The virus, the virus is a political issue, but also we've politicized like basic facts about the virus, and it drives me crazy. Like, I feel like God really sent us an easy pitch on this one. He sent us a little overhand toss. Like, he looked down on us and saw that the right and left were fighting too much, and just like, let's try to unite them with something just so easy, like something that kills everybody's grandmas and stops football and barbecues and makes it impossible to have sex with strangers. But no, we politicize the virus. We're not doing it right. We're like, America's like a couple that should have gotten divorced 5 years ago, and we can't even decide on dinner. Like, how about pizza? Pizza's good. It's like, no, Rob, fuck you and fuck pizza. Like, we can't decide. We're in the fuck pizza stage of our relationship. Like, we can't say basic facts about the virus. Like, the virus is bad. Like, the virus kills people. Like, pizza is good. It's cheese and sauce and bread. Can't do it. It's really, really disappointing. But I do have to apologize because the pandemic is my fault. Last year on my birthday, I blew out my candles and I wished that all anti-vaxxers would die. So it's one of those, like, be careful what you wish for situations. Sorry. My friend I was talking to earlier, she recommended for the tough room that this is, that I should just be myself. And that's the worst advice that you can give anybody. I hate that advice, right? Because when you tell somebody to be yourself, you have no idea what you're telling them to be like. You do not know who they truly are when you're telling someone to be yourself. Like, for all you know, you're like flipping their serial killer switch, right? Like, you don't know. Like, I think that, like, the better someone knows me, the more likely they're not gonna tell me to be myself, right? Like, if they really have seen me at some moments. Like, my mom would never tell me to be myself, right? Like, I'll tell her about a problem and she's like, is there a way you could conceal your personality more? I think that would help. My mom's really nice, it's fine, but but like, the next time somebody tells you to be yourself, you should just be like, oh, okay, I'll be myself. Like, and just like run off towards the horizon. That would be good. Don't tell anyone to be themselves. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe they're a great actor. Having trouble sleeping during the pandemic? Is anyone having trouble sleeping? Yeah, me too. Have trouble sleeping. I have a lot of insomnia. The worst part of insomnia is when you're on your phone in the middle of the night and the only people awake on Messenger are on drugs. This happens to me a lot. And you always know, like, what they're on, right? Like mushrooms keep people up. I'm like, hi, Joe, how are you? I'm feeling a little stressed and I can't sleep. And Joe's like, Oh, hi, I'm just up thinking about the texture of sadness. I think it's corduroy. Fuck. No, Joe. Either that or it's cocaine. That's the other one. That's also easy to tell that they're on cocaine because you're like, hey, Joe, like I can't sleep. I think I'm just a little stressed. And Joe's like, I'm on motherfucking cocaine. I'm like, why are you on Messenger, Joe? Get out there. I got paid in mushrooms once to do a comedy show. Yeah. The promoter was supposed to pay me money, but before the show, he was like, everyone in this room knows who I'm talking about. He's like, I don't have any cash, but, and he just like filled my hand with mushrooms. And I just went like, ow. Which is weird because when I get paid for comedy shows and money, I will like put it in my pocket for later. But I went, ow. So that was a fun show. I thought it was going to go terribly, but it went really well. I think that all of the Victorian raccoons enjoyed it. So this is good. Someone got in late on that joke. Oh, what else is on my list? And I've been microdosing recently. Has anybody tried microdosing before? Yeah, no, it's a good pandemic activity. Like it's instead of like going around, like instead of taking mushrooms, you just take mushroom, which works really well. I've also been microdosing alcohol, which you guys should totally check out. I've just been having like a glass of wine at dinner. It's so chill. Really chill. Or like instead of 7 beers, I'll just take 7 shots of whiskey. So yeah, microdosing. Look into it. It's tiny glasses. It's good. I want to tell you that I love Missoula. I really love Missoula. One of the things I love most about Missoula is it's different from every other place I've lived in this one aspect, which is in other parts of the country, if a weird pickup truck slows down and stops while you're walking your dog, they're going to catcall you, right? It's going to be really inappropriate. In Missoula, one of 2 things can happen. They're either going to slow down and catcall you, or they're going to say something really nice about your dog. And they like slow down. They're like, hey, nice tits. Or they're like, beautiful coat. Do you feed him fish? They're like, wanna fuck? Or does that dog hunt? It is so great. It's like the opposite of catcalling. Let's call it dog calling, right? And it's so great. And you have the opposite reaction to dog calling that you do cat calling. Like with dog calling, you just start running straight towards the vehicle to engage in more conversation, right? You're like, yes, thank you. Yes, oh yeah, he's 10 and he has very healthy hips. His name is Stringer. And it's wonderful. And I think that we should respond to catcalling in the same way. I've thought about this, like, nice tits. And then you just run towards the car. You're like, hey, thank you. Oh, that was so nice of you. What's your name? And my thought behind this is that, I think the scariest thing that can happen to a woman is to be like approached by a strange man and like verbally assaulted. But the scariest thing for a man is to suddenly be in a relationship. So you just run up to him. Oh, thank you. Oh, I love you. And I think you should quit smoking. Why haven't you texted me? All right, thank you very much. actually not quite sure who's, oh, it's Amanda. Okay. Coming up next is a pretty new comic on the scene, but I'm so excited about her. Please welcome Amanda Barr.
Ta-da! I had to come up with my mask first because it matches my shirt, which is the first time in like 7 months I've done that. So, and now it's stuck on a, whatever those are called. Those things that hold your hair up. This is the first time I've worn a high ponytail since 7th grade. I'm not sure how it's going. It's weird. It doesn't feel right, but I didn't want to wash my hair last night while we were having a like blizzardy thing. So this is what you get. I know I usually do a lot of like political or social movement stuff. When I'm on stage, I talk about those things. But we're in the middle of a lot of like scary shit right now. Everyone's kind of overwhelmed. So I'm going to talk about a different kind of shit, bird shit, which is actually, birds kind of taught me comedy. And one of the earliest memories I have is at my grandparents' house. And my grandpa had just finished building a porch for my grandma. And he hadn't finished putting it like the all seasons part in, so it was just a porch. And we're sitting out there, and for some reason my grandma is not paying attention and just looking around, and she looks up and she sees a duck. And the duck was part of a special duck operation. See, the ducks have been watching us for hundreds of years. You go back to like the Noah's Ark thing and you realize the ducks didn't go on the ark. Neither did the geese or any of the other birds that can swim, because they didn't have to. This is an Eddie Izzard bit, if you don't know it, that ducks should rule the world now. But, so the ducks have had just ages to plan, and they've gotten smart, they've strategized, they've also seen our movies. The ducks have watched Top Gun. And so they've got code names. And they've, they're getting the, this is Alpha 1, Goose, have you spotted a target? And indeed he had. He was in line with my grandma. And he goes, I have a woman, she's mid-60s, and I think she spotted me. Goose, fire when ready. And my grandmother plays along, she goes, look, a duck, and immediately gets shit on. Like, within a second, the duck just nails her. And that is my first real childhood memory of my family. It's this duck just like right in the middle of her face. So, yeah, birds taught me comedic timing. Just nail it right on the dot. And then, so when it comes to bird poop, I don't know if any of you know, but in Europe, it's really lucky if you get pooped on by a bird. And this is probably because, if you've ever been to Europe, there are 80 million pigeons, because they're not native to America, they're native to Europe. And so they've been breeding and breeding and breeding, and everyone lives so close together, so there's tons of trash and garbage for them to eat. And so you're actually more likely to get shit on by a pigeon than not to get shit on. And so someone a while ago did this like, if life hands you lemons, make lemonade thing, and decided, oh, we'll just tell people they're lucky if they get hit with bird poop. There we go, problem solved. Those pigeons, though, have been watching royalty, and they know how to do formations as well. Of course, they also watch Top Gun, and they're like, this is Alpha 1, Do you see a target? This is Iceman. I'm in Trafalgar Square. I see about 80,000 people. Most of them are Americans. Fire when ready. If you can hit a statue, that's a bonus point. We pay extra for that. I'm actually related to if you know Trafalgar Square, this is a super nerdy joke. The guy at the top of the statue that you can't see from anywhere is my great something grandfather. So when I visited there, I was like, oh, hello person I'm related to, and immediately got shit on by a bird. Don't talk with the statues. So I grew up in Missouri, as you might call it. And I grew up on a farm in the type of place where you have 500 acres, your neighbor has 500 acres, and you're both too cheap to put your own driveway in. So you decide that in all of this lovely space to put your houses right next to each other and share a driveway. So you can literally look in your neighbor's window, like from 10 feet across. Why? I don't know. I don't get it. But our neighbor across the driveway, his name was Terry. Terry lived in a log cabin with his parents. And he didn't really have a job so much as he just kind of did whatever he felt like tinkering with. He fixed a lot of bikes, and he would give them to me because he didn't know any other kids. So I had an actual stable of bikes. I could choose what color I wanted every day. But he also farmed birds. When we first moved in, when I was really little, we moved to the farm, he was farming peacocks. I don't know if anyone's ever seen a peahen, the lady peacock, but they are approximately this color. So really quickly, we got into some Lita and the Swan stuff. That is an art history rape joke. So I feel like it's been long enough that that's appropriate. I'm an art history master's student. So really nerdy here. The peacocks thought I was just the sexiest thing to walk into the neighborhood. And since their little peahen coop was over here and 10 feet across the driveway was my bedroom window, they were into it. And peacocks are aggressive. I don't know if you know this, but I'm really aware. The peacock mating dance is something like, it is not attractive, and when you are this tall, it is scary. I spent a good chunk of my childhood running away from peacocks. Don't ever buy a peacock, they're mean. So after peacocks, Terry decides to get some geese. And I don't know whatever deities were thinking when they invented geese, but they were like, let's give it wings. It can fly. It can walk awkwardly. It can run. It can swim. It has a long neck, huge wings. It's like the size of a 10-year-old. It's got a beak. Oh, come on, let's just give it teeth, too. That's what it needs. Teeth. Geese have teeth. So the peacocks are gone, and I thought, whew, I'm safe. And then in come 10 geese. And they think, I don't know what that is. It's small. It looks tasty. Let's see if we can eat it. And I spent another several years being chased by geese. The geese redeemed themselves. They redeemed themselves to the end of time. I now love geese. So we owned this big acreage, and on the acreage was a pond, and that was down the hill. So we would go down the hill, and we had all these trees, and we would cut our own Christmas tree, which is an experience that a lot of people pay for. They go to these Christmas tree farms, and they cut Christmas trees. But we did it on our own property because we don't pay for anything. We're farm people. So we're down there, like, chomping through the weeds, and my mom goes, oh, look, a goose. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but the geese and the ducks, they talk. They communicate. And they have the same kind of system. Because, well, the geese are from Canada. They do know how to be polite sometimes. And these geese were apparently my very good friends, because they went, "This is Bravo 1. Do you see any targets?" And the goose that was up there, he's like, "This is Maverick. I spy a target. I see a 50-year-old woman who looks like she's kind of mean to her kids. Fire when ready." And of course, my mom went, "Oh, look, a goose," and immediately shit on her face. And so that's called bookending. It's also called a callback, in case you didn't know. That's comedy. Thank you very much. So, I honestly do not know who's coming after me because I forgot to look. Nick, I don't even know your name. Nick Hyde, who is a comedian. I'm assuming from Missoula, because we're here in Missoula. And I'm going to let you take the stage now. Thanks.
Hello. Thank you. Just taking a moment to adjust to the weird thing about doing internet streaming comedy. So I feel like the tables have really turned here, where usually I'm the one paying for desperate internet strangers to expose themselves. But this is nice. Also, I don't know if it's a callback when it's to somebody else's set, but Sarah talking about cat calls reminded me of my own kind of wish, my dream, where I was out walking around with a friend of mine who's a hot person. So, hey, it can happen, believe in yourself. And someone cat called her, and I guess the responsible thing would probably be to be like upset or something and be like, "Ah, you son of a bitch." But mostly I just found myself jealous because I know what I look like. No one's catcalling me, but I don't know, I feel like there are still appropriate cat calls I could get, not necessarily based on physical appearance. Someone can drive by and just be like, "I bet you're a good listener," that'd be nice. "I bet you have a penis size proportional to your body." Thanks, friend. Something like that. But yeah, it's good to be out here having a weird life the last couple of years. I'm just going to get straight up to it. I've been dealing with severe depression, which might be a strange thing to open up with if you don't know comedians. But it's getting better now, but I like to bring it up for a few reasons, because mostly I think it's important to normalize mental illness so people don't feel as uncomfortable or ashamed bringing it up, and to let people know that I'm someone that's been there and you can talk with. But I think the most important thing is that I did spend a couple of weeks recovering in a mental hospital, and 2 different ladies gave me their phone numbers, which rules, and I'm never going to stop bragging about it to the day I die. But I also need to point out that I'm never calling those women, because just between you and me, internet strangers, those bitches are crazy. Which seems like a strange, unfair thing to say, and it is. You got me. But it's not because they were there in the hospital with me. That's fine. But because they saw a chubby, schlubby, sad man running around in no-slip hospital socks and thought, I got to get me some more of that. That is worth judgment. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. People ask me sometimes, what is it that could make you so depressed? And I'm like, oh, well, I've been a lawyer for 7 years, and that's answer enough. And then they ask, oh, why'd you become a lawyer? And it's because I was working at a comic book shop for a few years, and I had an English degree, and I only read independent, locally published comic books. And I thought, what's the next thing I could do that would make me even more of an insufferable prick? and law school was the next step. But it didn't make me any less of an idiot, so I'd get into legal argument with friends where like someone came up to me once and they said, oh, hey, you know, it would be the best thing about a spacesuit is that you can poop in it. And I was like, oh yeah, it is cool. But I mean, before we really get to that question, we have to answer a few other previous questions, such as what does it mean to have the best kind of spacesuit? Are we talking about the quality of materials, and what do we really mean by best? And is it going to have anything to do with comfort? Is it going to have anything to do with longevity? Is it going to have anything to do with cost? We have to answer all these questions first. But most importantly, before we even answer the premise of what you're putting forward here, I think we have to discuss the issue, which is I dare you to find a suit that I can't poop in. So my legal education is going great. I used to do civil rights work, and people always think that's really cool until they like really figure out what it's all about. You know, people ask me like, oh, so you've like, oh, civil rights, cool. So you're doing a lot to like forward and enhance like racial justice. And I'm like, oh, no, yeah, something, not exactly. And it's like, oh, no, so it must be something like gender equality. Like, no, yeah, I mean, not that, but not exactly. And I was like, oh, like, you know, enforcing people's voting rights. Like, oh, no, really. What exactly did you do? And I was like, well, I once enforced a violent sex predator's right to use an electric wheelchair. That's the kind of civil rights work I do. Yeah, I couldn't use his normal wheelchair anymore. His arms didn't. I was tired out from all the sex offending. Yeah, because everyone loves the big, dramatic legal wins, but they don't like the everyday, real people problems. Like the time I forced a local jail to provide an abortion for an inmate, and that is honestly one of my greatest legal accomplishments, but also one of my greatest legal regrets is that I couldn't be there for the procedure. Not because that's my thing or anything. It's not my thing. It's just not, you know, the reason that's my regret. My regret is that I don't know if it's ever happened before that instance. I can't imagine that there could be possibly a more smug abortion than when you require your own guards to stand and watch as it happens. And this is a thing I've talked about before that no one's laughed at, and I'm never going to stop talking about because it makes me happy. So thank you for that. Everyone loves a woman's right to choose until I get involved in it, as any other white man would. But yeah, lawyering's cool. I'm a defense lawyer now. My favorite thing is filing motions to suppress. For those who don't know, that's when cops find evidence that could convict your client, but they didn't say the words in the right order, and so at trial they have to pretend it doesn't exist anymore. And I love that shit because, like, I'm not an athletic person. I'm never going to know what it's like to be a basketballman and get all the score points. But I imagine it's similar to when a ball is about to go through the hoop, and I get to smack it away, except in my case, I push it back up through the hoop after it's already gone in, and then the other team has to give their points back, and then the ball hits a cop in the dick. And it's a fantastic feeling. And some people, they hear that I'm a defense lawyer, and they're like, oh, I thought defense lawyers were sleazy creeps. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, check me out. Like, didn't you hear my total wet fart of a joke about abortions? Like, yeah, that's me. But yeah, it's, I don't know. I'm a creepy guy, and it's fine, like in high school, like in our yearbook, I was voted like most likely to be wrongfully convicted of a sex offense, which is great. And I want to emphasize wrongly, like, no, I didn't do that thing, but yeah, it's probably up to something, I think was the consensus I give. And I first realized that this was just a fact because I was doing a comedy once with this, and this lady I was dating came with me, and she was great. She came to the comedy show because she was very, very supportive, and it was lovely. And then she ended up getting wasted because she was realistic about what it took to get through one of my comedy shows. And It's about like 1 a.m. here in Missoula after the show ended, and we went downtown to a local taco truck. And as we got to the front of the line, the guy at the taco truck looked at her, and then he looked at me, and then he looked at her again, and he said, "Hey, you be careful." And I was like, oh shit, like, no, that's hard evidence, because that's like, you take that same situation and replace me with Charles Manson, and he would have like looked at her and looked at him and looked at her again and looked back at me and said, "Hey, aren't you a vegetarian?" Like, that's how that would have gone down. But yeah, confirmed creep, which is cool. Like, I don't know. I'm like the fun kind of creepy, though, I think, you know. Like, I'm the kind of guy that's, like, going to try to, like, finger you in a haunted house. Like, that's, you know, that's fun. But that's as bad as it ever gets. But she was fun, too. She took me to my first ever sex dungeon. That was interesting, which I fuck that up every time I say it. She took me to my first ever professional sex dungeon. Yeah, no, I had my own game going for a while. I had a basement apartment for a long time where I kept a pair of handcuffs and a luchador mask, and people were always fine with the handcuffs but thought the luchador mask was culturally inappropriate, and so that's the thing I live with. But it was also weird because, like, she herself was a sex worker. Specifically, she did what she called being a professional girlfriend, where she was in a contractual relationship with a gentleman, and like I was her guy on the side, and it was led to a strange situation because she got a lot of money from her work, and then she would use that money to like treat me to nice things, and so it put me in a situation where I had a sugar mama who herself had a sugar daddy, which means I'm the only person I've ever known to have a sugar grandpa. And that's my time. You're welcome. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, I want to introduce your next comedian. She's a delight. She's one of my current favorite comedians, and also herself was a wonderful former singing telegram woman. Please give it up for Lynn Solomon.
Keep it going for Nick Hyde, folks. Yes, I was a singing telegram girl. I wasn't the kind where you took off your clothes. I was the kind, I had a nightmare prom date character, and I would make a poem out of your name. I made a lot of money, but we'll leave it at that. You know, I feel like, you know, first of all, thank you, everybody at home who has already donated. We had folks who donated tonight before we even started, so put your hands together. Bravo, bravo. But before I sort of get into my set, you know, I think we need to talk about a couple serious things, and I know these are, you know, there's a lot of change that's going to happen in the next few days and weeks, and there are some difficult conversations to be had, especially with the young people in our lives. And I think, I mean, there's going to be disappointment, and there's going to be sadness, and there's going to be some really some difficult things that we have to talk about with the young people in our lives. And I feel like, you know, for some of them, I mean, it is a snapshot, it is a moment in time, and it may scar them for decades. And I think you know what I'm talking about. It's what happens when a really cool Halloween costume is ruined because you have to wear a coat. Right? I mean, think of all the times when you wanted to be, remember when you were a kid? I remember it vividly. I really wanted to be a hula girl. And my mom said I had to wear a coat. It's like, Mom, I can't be a hula girl if I wear a coat. And then she said, well, you could put the costume on over your coat. So, yeah. I am delighted to be doing comedy. I think since March, I've done comedy maybe 2-3 times. You know, I am delighted to be here on stage. I am delighted to not be in my apartment, braless, watching my 9th consecutive episode of the First 48. Do you guys know this show? Tulsa, Oklahoma. Something happens in the first, there's always a murder, and then something bad happens if something else doesn't happen within the first 48. Yeah, I watched a lot of the First 48. You know, one time I saw Sarah. She mentioned something about how the pandemic has changed the way we communicate, and I really think she hit the nail on the head that night. And I've been thinking about it a lot. You know, I feel like there's certain words and phrases that just don't mean the same things that they meant in January. I mean, obviously, abundance of caution. If I hear that another time, front line. But I've had a very strange and unique exchange, largely with my female friends, but not exclusively my female friends, where we have this discussion that I don't think any one of us could ever have imagined, and that is, oh my God, Becca, I love your mask. It's super cute. Where'd you get it? It brings out your eyes. Yeah. The other thing about masks, I think I'm pretty much the oldest person in the room here. I don't know if anybody else here remembers mood rings. Do you remember mood ring? Oh, shout out for the mood ring. So mood rings were, later on I found out it was body temperature, but it was this ring and it would change with your mood. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could do that with a mask? Right, so you could have a mask, and somehow the mask, my mask tonight on the front, perhaps you saw it briefly, it said, be kind. So your mask could convey what was on your mind. It could change with your mood. It could say, I'm dying inside. It could say, bring me Dairy Queen. It could say, shut the fuck up. Yeah, just a thought. The other thing about the pandemic, who here has had a COVID test? Raise your hand, put your hands together. Yeah, so it's become like a thing. Well, I've had a COVID test. And I find myself, and I have, for the record, and I personally I think women, I think we all do way more painful things to our bodies than that, but that's for another show. But I feel like, I've got into conversations with people about the actual test, which is where you put this gigantic Q-tip up your nostril. And it's fascinating the things people want to discuss about the test. Like, for instance, I was talking to one person, a woman, and she said, we were talking about the test and it was coming up on her schedule, and she said, well, yes, I've been practicing. And I thought, what on earth does that mean? You've been practicing? What do you put? I don't want to know. But perhaps my favorite conversation about the COVID virus test was we were having a discussion about it, not a woman I knew very well. And she said to me, because I had had one and she hadn't had one yet, and she said, well, how does it compare to getting an IUD? A, I don't know. B, that ship has sailed, if you know what I'm saying. C, where do you put your IUD? Yeah. Those of you who know my comedy know that I talk a lot about sort of online dating. I'll be 54 here in a couple months. Hold for applause. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the woo. My 54 gets woo. And I keep thinking, God, Lynn, quit doing jokes about online dating. It's just so predictable. However, I'm sorry, people, that shit writes itself. Most recently, I have gotten messages from a 78-year-old, a 73-year-old, and perhaps what took the cake was the guy who sent me a message, and he was 70. And basically, he went out of his way to send me a message, and the bulk of them, the one line of the message was, oh, if only I were 10 years younger. And I thought, or more. But then it gets better, because then, I don't know, month and a half, 2 months later, he sends me another message, except by this time, he's 71. I thought maybe he, forgot. He sent me the first message. The other thing, and the pandemic, online dating in the era of the pandemic, they say things, I think a lot of the exchanges you have with men in online dating, it's pretty predictable anyway, but now it's turned into this whole shelter in my place. I'm essential. Or they tell you they're virus-free, which, right, Sarah, it could, you want to know which virus. So one of the things that I did when a lot of us, our job situation changed a few months ago, I started doing Instacart, which is where you deliver groceries to strangers. It is fascinating. It is fascinating. So you like do an order on your phone and you go to the grocery store and they send like a shopping list and there's photos and you pick it up and you pay for it with a card and then you take it to their house and they give you alternatives if they don't like it. It's fascinating. And so I started to just sort of develop little stories about the orders people would make. For instance, one day there was this order and all they got like ho-hos and ding-dongs and Twinkies and snowballs, and then they got that like canned deviled ham and like 4 things of SpaghettiOs. And my first thought was, well, they're all stoned. And then my friend Amy said to me, or maybe they have a 4-year-old. You know, and then there's the people who they get organic this and gluten-free that and dairy-free that and vegan that, and then you realize they've kind of like maxed out because then they just get a 5-pound bag of tater tots. And then there's the people who they don't even pretend. They get the taquitos, they get the Fruit Loops, they get the Frosted Flakes. There was the lady way out in Blue Mountain this teeny tiny lady with a little yippy dog who got like 6 gigantic cans of Ready Whip. Don't want to know. Don't want to know. So then I thought, you know what you could do is you could combine Instacart with other things. You could do Instapart, where I would deliver you chickpeas and like windshield wiper blades, things for your car. You could do Instabart, where I would deliver your groceries and I would also do a 1-woman recitation of an entire Simpsons episode. You could do Instafart, which would be entirely staffed by 11-year-old boys. The other thing about Instacart, you know, I think we've all struggled with our mental health issues and we've all struggled with our challenges during the pandemic, but I can tell you, I don't need a therapist. I don't need a counselor because I have my Instacart rating. And I'm here to tell you people, I'm above average. Thank you very much. My name's Lynn Solomon. I'm delighted to welcome this next comedian to the stage. He has an album of Turkish folk songs coming out soon that you're just not going to want to miss. Woo. But before that, you're going to see him this week coming up at the Roxy, Wednesday night show at the Roxy. So put your hands together for Nathan St Onge.
Hi, everyone. For those of you watching at home, this theater is very strange. What we've got is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tables, each with 1 occupant. Which means that before I came up here tonight, I was sitting alone at one of those tables. And while I was there, I did what I typically do when I get lonely. I got drunk. So that's nice. How is everyone? Oh, hi, Mom. How is everyone? Everyone's okay? Yeah? No homeschool shootings today? Yeah? We want to prevent those homeschool shootings. I highly recommend keeping a close eye on the middle child. That's your shooter. If you only have 2 children, you're the shooter. Tell the kids to pack a few things and run to Grandma's house and stay there forever. Thank you. Is classism still trending? Does classism has been all the rave? Are we still picking on rich people? Are there any rich people here tonight? No. No, Nathan, there's no one here tonight. That's fine. I can't actually pick on rich people. I don't know what bothers them. Wouldn't have the first clue. Yeah, you know, when someone has financial success in their occupation, we say they do well. What is that? Patricia does very well in hedge funds. But when someone has no financial success, we never point out that they do not do well. Kathy does not do well bagging groceries. And I heard she's lonely. I don't know. Here we go. All right. Mid-stride. I always thought my biggest problem was fear of success until one day that fear ended. And that's when I realized that I have no skills. I don't know how to do anything, much less well. It occurs to me that I'm a hyper-privileged person by nature, and I am working to acknowledge that privilege. So I've developed a nice soothing voice inside my head, to talk me down when I'm being really stupid. Like, oh, life's hard, and I don't have anything, and that's not fair. Nathan, what are you physically doing right now? Oh, making a pour-over. Ooh, what's a pour-over? It's a cup of coffee. Just a cup of coffee? Yeah, no, well, you grind fairly traded single origin beans and then pour hot water through the fresh grounds in a specific period of time. That sounds delicious. What will you do when it's ready? I don't know, probably just watch the clouds go by. More specifically, watch the clouds go by on the weather app on my iPhone. Oh, is that right? Do you have any plans? Do you have any grand plans if the virus ever lets up? Oh, well, I was thinking it might be nice to safely hitchhike around the panhandle of Idaho. For a while. That sounds very adventurous. Why do you say safely? Oh, it's just that, the citizens there can be pretty threatening if you don't pass as white and male. Interesting. That's very interesting, Nathan. Listen, speaking of passing as white and male, have you ever considered walking through just about any door on Earth and getting what you ask for? Oh, well, I wouldn't want to bother anyone. Nathan. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry for denying my privilege. I already said that. Thank you. Success, privilege. Oh, I'm a Sagittarius. We don't believe in astrology. Astrology lovers hate Sages. And that's fantastic because I don't want to discuss astrology, and no astrology lover wants to, and I quote, hear what a fucking Sag has to say about it. But even as a non-believer, or Sag for short, I've learned to recognize when a Sag occurrence is taking place in my life. For instance, when I matched with myself on Tinder. This can only happen to a Sagittarius. The profile pic was my passport photo. I thought that was really clever. The bio claimed that I'm a comedian, so we had that in common. And best of all, I was less than a mile away. Meta footnote, if you look yourself up on Tinder, you will discover that you are less than a mile away. Where was I? Less than a mile away. So, I agreed to meet myself in a nearby park in broad daylight. You can't be too safe. We had a lovely conversation. It's just that I did seem a bit detached. Also, I couldn't always tell whether or not I was being serious, which is something I've heard all too many times about myself, and now I truly understand the struggle. Anyway, I haven't seen myself since the park. For a while I was thinking maybe I'm just not that into me. But then I remembered I'm a Sagittarius, so that can't be right. I guess I was hoping it would work out, if for no other reason than to placate all the perfectly reasonable people who have ever told me to go fuck myself. That's two. I'm Nathan St Onge. Thank you very much. Wait a minute. I'm not the headliner. What? Nick Hyde, I'm not the headliner. The headliner is a completely different comedian. His name is Tim Miller. He will be working at Stave and Hoop on November 10th. Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary friends, welcome the real deal, Tim Miller.
Give up for Nathan, everybody, as he gets off the stage. Go ahead and get the fuck off, Nathan. No. Give up for all the other comedians, everybody. Yeah. I'm the last one, yeah. Give up for the ZACC for having us. Yeah. I'm a lover, not a fighter. But I'm also not a lover, so I'm just a coward. Yeah. Timid applause. Is there like a back road to hell I can take? Because I kind of want to avoid the traffic on the highway. Yeah. I'm not so much a man of action as I am a man of just planning everything extensively and then just not doing it. Yeah. Nick Hyde mentioned sports earlier. Basketball in particular. I kind of want to be like one of those weird guys that like prefers to like sports as like sports ball or whatever, but I want to like take it one step further and like start referring to everything as like spheres, like basket sphere, base sphere, foot sphere, kick sphere, volley sphere, club sphere, dick and spheres. Yeah. Unlike Nathan, I did recently just have sex with myself. There's just one problem. Myself has become kind of clingy. Like I woke up the next morning, myself was still there. Made breakfast for just me. Myself couldn't take a hint, so they just had breakfast with me. Myself went to work with me. Now I'm seeing myself everywhere. There's mirrors. Yeah, myself is like liking like my Facebook post from like 3 months ago at like 3 o'clock in the morning. So now I know how Donald Trump and Kanye West feel. Everybody excited for Halloween coming up? Yeah. All the Halloween movies, you know, like Nightmare on Friday the 13th before Halloween, like 1 for 50. All the Halloween specials, like It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, which might be my favorite Peanut special, because it doesn't really have so much to do with Charlie Brown, that sad sack motherfucker. He just reminds me too much of myself. Okay. Like if Peanuts were real life, I'd be Charlie Brown. The football would be success, love, and happiness, and life would be Lucy, so. Okay. But I can't watch It's a Great Pumpkin the same anymore since like the 2016 election. This reminds me too much of Donald Trump. You know, because Donald Trump and the Great Pumpkin are pretty similar, you know. They're both big and orange. They've both been mistaken for dogs. And they're both believed in by people who are way too attached to their bed coverings. It's a KKK joke, in case you didn't get that. There is one difference, though. I actually want the Great Pumpkin to exist, so. Okay. God, I hope Trump just loses in a landslide and he goes to prison and they make him build a wall around himself for just for eternity. I think that should be his punishment. He just has to build a wall around himself for eternity. Fucking Trump. Yeah. I have a confession to make. I'm an incel. With a hard D. With hard D. Well, it's sometimes hard. I'm indifferently celibate. Like, I get it. I don't know. I'll have sex when it happens. I get it, ladies. I don't know if I want to have sex with me either. It's fine. In fact, when I masturbate, I like to use Hulk hands just so I pretend to somebody else. And it makes me feel powerful. Sometimes I'll mix it up with oven mitts. Yeah. I'm not great at dating. Like, every crush I've had is like unrequited. It's like I'm Captain Incel and I'm floating in a sea of Mobies. We don't want to touch your dicks. Yeah. Where else was I going with this set? Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I live in the future too much. Like, I'm always like 10 steps ahead of myself. Like, I just started recording a podcast recently and I'm not even having released season 1. I'm already planning season 11. And I sat down and wrote up plans for like a multi-year Batman comic book run that I might get around to writing if DC ever calls me back. I've called them multiple times. They won't get back to me. Yeah, if my life was a house, like, the foyer would be the present where I entertain guests, because my life house would have a foyer. It's fine. And like, the future would be the living room where I spend most of the time. The basement would be like the past that I just kind of sometimes forget about. The kitchen would be like comedy where I like feed my soul. Like, right now, I don't know, I'm not feeling very full. In my basement, in my bedroom would just be locked so I can keep all the deep, dark, pretty mediocre sex fantasies in there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I do feel like I live in the future a lot, but oddly, I feel like I'm like behind the times. I feel like I'm 10 years behind myself. Like, for instance, I didn't lose my virginity till I was like 26, where some people lose theirs at like at 16. I didn't have my first kiss till I was like 23. Some people have their first kiss when they're 13. I just recently discovered the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm really excited when I get around to watching the Avengers movie in 2022, so. Yeah. But that's fine. I mean, I feel like I could live with being 10 years behind. Like, at this point, maybe I'll live longer. At this point, I'll probably go to college at 30, have a kid at 45, get divorced at 50, and maybe I'll actually live to be 110, which is my plan, so I can live in 3 different centuries. And then I can die by being hit by a blimp. So I've always wanted to die doing what I've never done in my entire life. Watching blimps. Which is just a stupid hobby. Like, the blimp watching book would just be like 2 pages. It'd be like the Hindenburg just crossed out. The Goodyear blimp, which is just already circled for you because everybody's seen the Goodyear blimp. When you turn the page, it's me flipping you off and telling you to get a better hobby, so. Okay, I'm Tim Miller. This has been the show. Thanks, everybody. Give up for the ZACC. Give up for all the other comedians. Give up for Zet for putting this together. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, that's the show. That was great. Tonight has proven that you can really just get up on stage and say anything you want. That being said, Greg Gianforte just texted me and said he was going to donate $1,000 to this show. If he doesn't, he's a bad person. Anyway, thank you to all the comedians performing tonight. Give yourself a hand. Yeah. And for the ZACC, and for Michaela, and for me. Also, thank you to Romer's Point S Tires for sponsoring this show. Go to our Give Butter campaign, or go to the ZACC Facebook page or website. Donate anything you can. It goes to the Montana Racial Equity Network. So, yeah. That's it. Please vote. Black Lives Matter. We're on stolen land. I don't know what else to say. Good night.